The Progressive Era by Murray Rothbard. Edited by Patrick Newman. Narrated by Graham Wright. Foreword by Andrew Napolitano. 3. Ethno-religious conflict and the rise of feminism. B. Eugenics and birth control. One way of correcting the increasingly pro-Catholic demographics was to restrict immigration. Another was to promote women's suffrage. A third way, often promoted in the name of science, was eugenics, an increasingly popular doctrine of the progressive movement. Broadly, eugenics may be defined as encouraging the breeding of the fit and discouraging the breeding of the unfit, the criteria of fitness often coinciding with the cleavage between native white Protestants and the foreign-born or Catholics, or the white-black cleavage. In extreme cases, the unfit were to be coercively sterilized. To the founder of the American Eugenics Movement, the distinguished biologist Charles Benedict Davenport, a New Yorker of eminent New England background, the rising feminist movement was beneficent provided that the number of biologically superior persons was sustained and the number of the unfit diminished. But the problem was that the fecund women were not the pietist progressives, but the Catholics. For in addition to immigration, another source of demographic alarm to the pietists was the far higher birth rate among Catholic women. If only they could be induced to adopt birth control. Hence, the birth control movement became part of the pietist armamentarium in their systemic struggle with the Catholics and other liturgicals. Thus, the distinguished University of California eugenicist Samuel J. Holmes lamented that the trouble with birth control is that it is practiced least where it should be practiced most. In the Birth Control Review, leading organ of the birth control movement, Annie G. Porritt was more specific, attacking the folly of closing our gates to aliens from abroad while having them wide open to the overwhelming progeny of the least desirable elements of our city and slum population. In short, the birth controllers were saying that if one's goal is to restrict sharply the total number of Catholics, coloured, Southern European or no, then there is no point in only limiting immigration while the domestic population continues to increase. The birth control and the eugenics movement therefore went hand in hand, not the least in the views of the well-known leader of the birth control movement in the United States, Mrs. Margaret Sanger, prolific author, founder and longtime editor of the Birth Control Review. Echoing many of the various strains of progressivism, Mrs. Sanger hailed the emancipation of women through birth control as the latest in applied science and efficiency. As she put it in her autobiography, quote, "In an age which has developed science and industry and economic efficiency to their highest points, so little thought has been given to the development of a science of parenthood, a science of maternity, which could prevent this appalling and unestimated waste of womankind and maternal effort." End quote. To Mrs. Sanger, science also meant stopping the breeding of the unfit. A devoted eugenicist and follower of C.B. Davenport, she in fact chided the eugenics movement for not sufficiently emphasizing this crucial point. Quote, "The eugenicists wanted to shift the birth control emphasis from less children for the poor to more children for the rich. We went back of that and sought first to stop the multiplication of the unfit. This appeared the most important and greatest step toward race betterment." End quote.